Hello everybody! Before we begin, I would like to let you all know that I have a book out. It is called Not Quite Dead, and it is the story of a woman whose fiancé passed away a year ago, having dreams where he tells her that he's still alive and trying to use said dreams to get him back. It is available on Amazon in both paperback and ebook formats, so if you've ever wanted to support me financially, then this is your opportunity to do so. Link is in the description. Hey gang, it's Squill, and welcome to my top 10 Steven Universe Season 3 episodes. For this list, I pretty much knew what the top 5 was gonna look like immediately, but struggled hard with the bottom half. A lot of these episodes are very close together. So let's see which episodes this season made it into my top 10. At number 10, we have Too Short to Ride. Too Short to Ride is a nice little Peridot episode that acts as a good epilogue to her Season 2 arc. I really like that the show makes it a point that Peridot isn't some perfect person after her redemption. You know, she still has these little flaws and insecurities, such as her inability to shapeshift, which is explored in this episode. And it's nice that we get this small little personal journey for Peridot set outside of the high stakes of the cluster arc. It gives us a chance to really examine her insecurities, see what makes her tick. And it's a relatable feeling, not being able to do something that the people around you seem to do with no ease at all. As someone who was never able to whistle, I feel this quite heavily. And I like the takeaway here, that even if Peridot isn't able to shapeshift, she still has abilities that make her unique, such as being able to control metal. Hey, if I had a nickel for every short green cartoon character with metal powers, even if the show doesn't really utilize it that much, it is just cool that Peridot has her own little thing, you know? Too Short to Ride is a great Peridot episode with a nice message. Really like this one. At number 9, we have Steven Floats. Steven Floats is such a fun episode. I really enjoyed this low-key approach to introducing a new Steven power. The simple, very gag-driven affair. It feels a lot more cartoony than your average Steven Universe episode, in a good way. Love Steven's over-the-top imagination scene, very funny. But I also think this one has a pretty strong emotional core. Coming directly off the heels of the Barn arc, it's really fun just watching the Gems hang out with Steven. It's not technically a low-stakes episode, like Steven could very well die from this, but it feels pretty low stakes, at least for the most part, which allows the show to highlight the ways in which the Gems keep Steven company, as well as the jokes. Again, this is a very funny episode. Steven Floats marks a big return to Beach City, as well as a fun introduction to one of Steven's powers. At number 8, we have Gem Hunt. I really love the atmosphere of Gem Hunt. This nice little Steven and Connie story about the two needing to survive out in the wild. There's a good sense of urgency here, to catch and hopefully heal this corrupted gem. But I like that they also stop to recharge at certain points. It's not just about the mission, maintaining energy is important too. The Steven and Connie dynamic really gets to shine here. Love just how seriously Connie takes the situation in comparison to Steven. So much fun. You also gotta love the snowy aesthetic to this one. Helps make it visually stand out compared to most other episodes. While her scene is fairly brief, I really like the wrinkle that Jasper's inclusion adds to this story. That Steven and Connie weren't the only ones hunting this corrupted gem. Love the way she taunts Steven here. Great setup for her arc over the next few episodes too. Gem Hunt is a fun wilderness adventure episode, and a great start to the arc that takes place over the last chunk of Season 3. At number 7, we have Hit the Diamond. Hit the Diamond is a ridiculous farce of an episode, and I kinda love it for that. I know some people don't like this one, as it kinda wastes the Rubies as villains, but it's hard to care when the episode itself is just so much fun. Lots of great little comedic character moments in this one, with Ruby and Sapphire being easily the highlight. These two are just adorable here, the way they get all flirty around each other. It's nice getting to see them in such a low-stakes situation for once. Lapis is also really funny in this one. Or, I'm sorry, Bob. As someone who doesn't really care about sports at all, she is such a mood here. The Rubies are such inherently goofy characters that it doesn't really bother me that the show doesn't take them seriously. And coming right after some pretty big episodes, it's fun just having this silly baseball romp. In my eyes, Hit the Diamond is a home run. I think. Again, I don't really know sports that well. At number 6, we have Steven versus Amethyst. Gonna be hard to talk about this one without just repeating a lot of what I said in the retrospective. Steven versus Amethyst taps into a feeling that I'm sure most of us can relate to. That feeling that other people in your life are farther along in their development than you. That you should be at a certain place that you just aren't. But in reality, this whole competition between Amethyst and Steven is all in Amethyst's head. They both have strengths that the other lacks, and at the end of the day, neither of them want or need to be better than the other, as the two make each other stronger. But putting all that great character stuff aside for a moment, the actual battle between Steven and Amethyst is also very fun. It's so funny seeing them praise each other as they duke it out. They're both trying so hard to prove that they're the weaker crystal gem. You really do feel their sibling-like bond, especially near the end of the battle when they both stop taking it seriously. Steven vs. Amethyst is definitely one of the strongest episodes in Amethyst's overall character arc. At number 5, we have Earthlings. Hey, speaking of Amethyst's character arc, actually, even though it's a few episodes later, I think this one worked really well as a follow-up to Steven vs. Amethyst. In that episode, Amethyst learned that she and Steven are both stronger when they work together, and here that is put into practice. Smoky Quartz is such a fun character, easily one of my favorite fusions. They embody the youthful energy of both Steven and Amethyst perfectly. They have such a fun design and personality too. I really love all the Jasper stuff in this one, her being so desperate to feel stronger that she fuses with a corrupted gem. And even they don't want to stay with her. I love her big monologue near the end of the episode too. She sounds like she's just completely lost it. Kimberly Brooks gives such a good performance here. And we get some nice payoff to Peridot's metal powers to boot. Earthlings is a great conclusion to Amethyst's character arc, and is honestly good enough to be a season finale. At number 4, we have Greg the Babysitter. Another Greg and Rose flashback makes the top 5. Who'da guess? Greg is such a man-child in this one. Just a complete loser. But it's a very relatable feeling, being stuck between the worlds of childhood and adulthood. Like, as a 21-year-old, this is such a mood. I really like Rose in this episode too. This one isn't about her relationship with Greg, unlike the previous 2 flashbacks. But her aloofness here is just adorable, and she adds a very interesting dynamic to the episode. As a gem, she doesn't really have much of a concept of growing up. Everything she needed to know, she knew when she was born. Which means that, in comparison, Greg is naturally going to feel more childlike by default. Side note, Rose's speech here is one of my favorite scenes in all of Steven Universe. Just such a beautiful way to describe what it's like to be human. It gives me goosebumps every time. Greg the Babysitter is another excellent installment in the Greg and Rose flashback saga. At number 3, we have Alone at Sea. Alone at Sea is the best Lapis episode, full stop. We get such a good exploration of her character here, her trauma from being trapped in the ocean for so long, and the self-hatred she feels from the whole experience. Her confrontation with Jasper is so interesting. I love the subversion here, that Jasper has formed a sort of toxic codependency with Lapis. It's the kind of thing you wouldn't expect from a brute like Jasper, to be so dependent on the power of somebody else. And I like that the show doesn't really tell us how to feel about what Lapis did. Hell, if you really wanted to, you could make the argument that Lapis was worse than Jasper. I personally think the relationship was pretty mutually toxic, but that's besides the point. I also just love the general mood and atmosphere of this climax. The stormy weather and the camera angles they use just make it feel so dramatic. Especially compared to the fairly lighthearted way this episode begins. Alone at Sea is an excellent character-focused episode for Lapis, and a great reintroduction to Jasper. At number 2, we have Bubbled. Bubbled is probably my favorite season finale Steven Universe has ever had. I just love the atmosphere here, of Steven floating alone in space with the Soul Ruby. It's basically a bottle episode. Although it reminds me more of the episode Godfellas from Futurama. I really love the Steven and Eyeball dynamic. It's really funny how she starts out not believing him about having Rose's gem, to them very briefly being friendly with each other once she does believe him, only for her to just immediately turn around and try to rip the gem out. There's just a lot of great back and forth between the two that makes the episode entertaining. They do such a good job emphasizing the cold emptiness of space, how Steven and Eyeball are the only people each other have. Especially after Eyeball leaves, and we just get that long shot of Steven all alone. All building to that absolutely beautiful final scene, where the gems rescue Steven and we finally hear Love Like You play in full. It's another one of my favorite scenes in all of Steven Universe. It just feels so emotionally cathartic. Steven asking Garnet if Rose could really shatter Pink Diamond sets up his arc over the rest of the show perfectly. Just an amazing way to cap off a season. Bubbled is a banger episode. And at number 1, we have Mr. Greg. Gee, who could have seen this one coming? Mr. Greg is basically the I Remember You of Steven Universe. In the sense that it's a fan-favorite musical episode exploring the complicated dynamic between two characters. It's impressive just how many musical numbers they managed to cram into this 11-minute episode. And they're all great, too. Don't Cost Nothing is a nice simple song about how Greg has everything he needs. Empire City is an exciting rock song that gets you amped up for the rest of the episode. Mr. Greg is just a lot of fun. Both of You is a great emotional climax. And the reprise of Don't Cost Nothing is a nice way to wrap up the episode. But It's Over, Isn't It is easily the highlight of the episode. Just an incredible ballad by Pearl grieving over a relationship that she thinks she lost to Greg. Dee Dee Hall's performance here is just incredible, making this easily one of the best songs in all of Steven Universe. On top of that, I also just really love the Pearl and Greg dynamic here. It's a complicated relationship where neither of them are really in the wrong. Pearl is justified in feeling jealous over what Greg had with Rose, especially since she knew her for way longer. But it's also not Greg's fault Rose fell in love with him, and he is grieving over her too. And I love that the climax is just them talking things out, and realizing that they aren't as different as they think they are. Mr. Greg is one of the most iconic episodes of Steven Universe, and for good reason. This one is just absolutely perfect. For the honorable mentions, we have Gem Drill. I really love the Steven and Peridot dynamic here, as well as a lot of the imagery, but as I said in my retrospective, I do find the resolution to the cluster arc to be a little rushed. Beach City Drift. Probably the weakest Stevonnie episode, but still a lot of fun, and it has a great message about not letting other people get to you. This one would probably be my number 11. Monster Reunion is a pretty solid follow-up to Centipedal's first episode in Season 1, and Bismuth is a pretty great two-parter that feels properly big and important. Though I admit, I've always found this climax to be a little over the top for my liking, and that was the Season 3 list. Please let me know your favorite episodes in the comments and have a good one. Squill out.